Good morning and thanks so much for joining in. You're watching Ask Profit on NDTV Profit. My name is Mathew and with me is Smriti Chaudhary, and we'll take you through the next half an hour of trade. Let's take a look at where the markets are right now before we jump into the purpose of the show, which is essentially taking all of your all of your queries. Obviously, you are the viewer. If you've got questions for us, you can send them to us on the number that you see on the screen, and we have access to that WhatsApp number so we can take all of your questions. Alternatively, of course, you can send them to us on any one of our social media platforms. But on the screen right now, you see the Nifty 50 has made quite the stellar comeback. Of course, the range that we're talking about is very narrow, but we are at the high point of the day, up about 0.1%. And the broader markets are doing reasonably well as well. You have the mid-cap 150 index that's trading with gains of about 0.1%, and the small-cap index, which is up about 1/3% or thereabouts. All told, the market breadth is tilted in favor of the advances. In fact, you have, from what my screen is showing me, as many as 1,159 advances on the NSE compared with 792 declines, which is quite significant. And unless that breadth changes very dramatically, you're not going to see very significant declines. Let's take a look at what's contributing to the Nifty's move right now. You have a couple of names in the banking pack right on the top of the list. The heavyweights of the banking pack. You have HDFC Bank as well as ICICI Bank contributing most to the gains right now. On the losing end, you have Reliance Industries, which is losing a little bit of ground and is proving to be a drag on the benchmark. It is down less than 1% at this point, if I'm not mistaken, if we can pull up that chart intraday and see where it currently is at. Reliance Industries, let's pull up Reliance Industries and talk about where it is. There we go. So it's recovered from the low point of the day. It's down only about 0.4% right now. And in fact, it is proving to be a bit of a drag. But the one stock that we've decided to focus on today is Ujjivan Small Finance Bank, because in its latest update, it has lowered its guidance for loan growth in the current financial year from 25% to 20%. It's down about 5.6% or 5.5% as we speak. And to tell you about what the latest update is, I'm joined by Mika. Mika, what can you tell us?
Yes, so Ujjivan Small Finance Bank has lowered its FY25 guidance, loan growth guidance by 500 basis points, as the company is seeing some stress building in some of the pockets. Three bank estimates were changed. So for the loan growth, it was 25% previously as of May 2024, but the guidance now is at 20%. For return of equity, there's a 200 basis point drop from 22% to 20% currently. And lastly, we have the credit costs, which were first guided to be in the range of 1.4 to 1.5%, while the new guidance is stated for 1.7%. Now, the previous guidance was just 5 weeks ago, but the new guidance now takes into consideration data from a report by the CRIF, which is the Center of Research for International Finance. The company is seeing stress in some industry pockets, is what the MD and CEO of the company, Itira Dittas, has told NDTV Profit. What they also added was that the microfinance industry is facing certain repayment delays across certain regions, and these regions where the stress is visible is mainly Punjab, Haryana, Southern Tamil Nadu and Kerala. As per the CRIF report, the portfolios with loans of over 18 months are at risk, and Ujjivan small bank finance's portfolio at risk is at 0.84% as of FY24.
Right. Thank you so much, Mihika, for those details. On that note, let me introduce you to the guests for today. We have Lancelot Dicuna, CIO ValueX Wealth Connect, along with Aditya Arora, founder at Adlytic.in. Welcome to both of you, and thanks for joining in today. I'll come straight to you, Lancelot, on Ujjivan Small Finance Bank. In a span of 5 weeks, the company has cut its guidance. We're seeing that impact on the stock. How are you seeing the future of the company based on the fundamentals?
So while the present fundamentals are looking good, what has to be seen is that going forward, if you're going to see more instances of state governments waiving loans, especially of these microfinance and small finance lenders, it is definitely going to have an adverse impact on the financials of all these small finance banks located, especially those located in that region. And we did during this, election results and post that, understand that from Telangana government, there was likely to be some kind of relief being provided to farmers in, Andhra and Telangana. So this is becoming, it is a political risk, and, it has an immediate impact on the valuations going forward if such a move is done to waive off these loans. So I think in the light of that, things are looking a little bit difficult from a fundamental perspective.
Okay, that's a fair point. Let's jump straight into the questions then. We've also got Aditya Arora joining in. Aditya, good morning. Lancelot, good morning to you. The first question that I've got is from Krishna Kumar, and he's asking about HDFC Life. It's a relatively short-term query. So I'm going to go to you, Aditya, on the charts. He's asking for the next 6 months, and he's bought, or rather he's bought 6 months ago at 618.12, and he's looking for the prospects in the near term. What do the charts indicate to you?
Very good morning to you and very good morning to everyone. Look, this stock is mostly a range-bound stock. There isn't much movement. So the right style of trading this stock is, buying at the lower end and, selling at the upper end. Basically, stock has established its support at levels of 510 to 550, which is the demand zone for the stock. So one can actually buy it in this range, average it down to in these levels, or add on more stocks at this level, and he should look to book out his position at levels of about 640 to 650. He can see a breakout only if the stock crosses level of 725. From there, a fresh leg of rally may start, which can extend towards 800 to 900. But that's a big target. That's a big breakout, which may take a lot of time. Right now, the levels which he must watch is 550 on the lower hand side, wherein he could add little more stocks, add little more shares, and 650 is the level wherein he can, trim his positions.
All right, understood. The next question is on Motherson wiring. The question is from Mridul Singh.
It's on Excite India. No, so I actually told him that I would not take Motherson wiring because you're keeping it at 130.
All right.
Sorry.
So then, Mridul, we'll take your question on Excite. The question is it a good time to buy the stock? Lancelot, coming to you, the prospects of Excite and the likes seem to be very positive if you look at brokerage notes as well. Do you suggest the same in terms of valuation as well? Do you suggest getting into a stock like Excite right now?
So I think valuation perspective, it is really a little bit expensive at this point in time. A lot of the future growth is already getting factored into the price. And given that, we've seen an almost 85% rise in the value in the last 3 months, it is a little bit expensive. So one should wait for a kind of correction, because once, valuations come off and maybe trade between their, 5-year trailing multiples, then those would be better levels to accumulate the stock. Although the business is good and the things are really positive for the company, I think valuations are a bit stretched at this point in time.
Okay, speaking of stretched valuations, let's pull up Bharat Dynamics. The stock is currently trading about 2% higher right now, and it's up 80.7% in the year to date. I'm talking about 2024. We've got viewer Jagdish, who's bought at levels of 1,625, 100 shares, which is higher even than it is right now, Lancelot. So from that perspective, would you say that it makes sense to hold on for the long term, or do you think that it might make sense to get out even though you're seeing a bit of a loss and you wait for better opportunities down the road?
Yeah, I think considering that, the one is the stock has really run up. So it's, multiples in terms of PE are very, very high compared to what it has traded back in the past. But of course, one could argue that the situation has changed and now the company is likely to see more orders. But even these orders have to be received and they have to translate into profitability, and that profitability has to justify such an increased valuation. So I think given that whatever outlook you have for the next 2 to 3 years in terms of profitability, it's very difficult to justify the high valuations, and one should maybe book profits, because even 1 or 2 negative quarters can result in serious re-rating of the stock on the downside, and one could see significant losses then at that point in time. So it's better to exit and wait for reasonable levels for which one can accumulate the stock later.
All right. Lancelot says the viewer should exit Bharat Dynamics and then enter again at reasonable levels. The next question is from Bishal Banerjee. The stock is RVNL, that is Railway Vikas Nigam Limited. They have already bought in the shares at a price of 369, considerable profit for Bishal there. Aditya, coming to you on this one, would you suggest holding on to the stock? Do you see more upside? We've already seen the stock run up quite a bit in 2024, actually more than 100% in 2024 itself. Do you see more upside from here on? And this is from a longer term perspective.
Actually, whether you talk about defense space or you talk about railway, which are much talked about themes this year, and we have seen much hype around these sectors. Along with that, what accompanies is that overvaluation in defense. We talked about Bharat Dynamics previously, and now even railway qualifies for the same. So valuations are pretty expensive, and on charts also, these stocks are very overbought. They trade in very high overbought zones, whether you talk about any technical parameter. So these are prone to a good level of correction if there's any negative trigger. So at this level, I wouldn't suggest to hold on to these stocks, but it's a better idea to take chips off the table. These are one of the best levels to, book profit, I believe.
Got it. All right. I'm coming back to you on this next one. And this is a question from Puneet. He's asking about Divi's Laboratories. And I would choose the first out of the two stocks that he's asked about, which is Divi's Laboratories. He's looking for targets for the next 3 to 6 months. Is this the right time to enter? Aditya, what's your view?
Look, in pharma space, the pharma space is in such a consensus trade right now, and the trend is reversing from the downside to upside in various large caps and small caps. So definitely it's a good buy, and we can see a rounding bottom formation in Divi's Lab. So I think one can build positive bias in Divi's Lab at 4537, and one should maintain stop loss at 3,900. Target should be 5,000 to 5,500.
All right, understood. We have another question on Exide. Now, this one's on the technical levels for Exide. This one's from Madhav. Aditya, if you can give us the levels to watch out for in Exide.
I think a lot of stocks qualify in, run up kind of, they qualify in a run up rally kind of stocks, there's no stopping in these stocks, and they just go up one way on the upside. So I think there's no point chasing Exide at this price point, because there could be scope for potential correction also. So I would suggest wait for a dip. Right levels to accumulate Exide would be about 500 kind of levels. At this level, one can accumulate the stock. At this price, I think one should, ride the rally if one is holding the stock, or avoid if you're looking to, make a fresh buy in this counter.
All right. We've got Sastamani who's asking about Samvardhana Motherson, and he's holding at levels of 186. But we have to ask this after this very quick break. I'm just reminded that we had to slip into the break. We'll ask this after the break. Do stay tuned.
Welcome back. You're tuned into Ask Profit. We were taking your queries, and the next one, as Alex had pointed out, is Samvardhan Motherson International. Now, we've already discussed the wiring stock, but Lancelot, coming to you on this one, the query is from, do we have a name here? Sastamani. And the question, they've already bought the counter at 152 rupees, a considerable amount of profit there. From a longer term perspective, Lancelot, would you suggest holding on to this based on fourth quarter results, which were pretty stellar? Do you see that kind of run rate maintaining in FY25 as well?
Well, I think, the run rate may not maintain at the same rate, but at the same time, there have been clear, let's say, green shoots of growth coming back. And that is quite positive for the company. So given that, the acquisition cost has been at relatively on the lower side, one can stay invested in the stock for a while and check out, how the business is panning out over the next 12 to 18 months.
Varun Beverages is the next counter that I want to talk about, and it's currently trading down about 0.4% at 1587 or thereabouts. And take a look at the year-to-date performance, though it's been pretty good, 27% higher. We've got Aditya Singh, who's bought at levels of 641, which is quite a while back. The question is for you, therefore, on the fundamentals, Lancelot. Would you suggest holding on at this point?
Yes, Alex, I think the fundamentals are good for the company. You are seeing growth. While there can be a possibility that, yes, considering the quantum of shares that you're holding and the proportion of this share to your overall portfolio, you can do profit booking considering that you have made, money, and then look at, adding to the stock again when it corrects a bit. But if you look at the business model of the company and the growth that has been seeing, we are seeing good earnings growth going forward as well. They've also taken up a fresh bottling franchisee, overseas as well, which will begin to add to their profitability over time. So the long-term growth prospects are good, and one should remain invested in the company.
All right. The next counter is HDFC Bank. This one's from Snigdha, who's writing in from Delhi. They bought the counter at a price of 1,450 from a shorter term perspective. Aditya, the stock is currently trading over 1,600 levels. Do you suggest booking profits, or do you see more upside in the short term?
I think there's a resistance placed at 1670 to 1700. This is the supply zone for the stock. So I think if the view is for the short term, then Snigdha can book the profit at current levels and wait for lower levels to, again accumulate the counter. But right now, booking the profit wouldn't be a bad idea.
All right, coming back to you on another frontline stock. This is on Tata Motors, and this is from Rama Jayanti. He's asking about the next 6 months. He's acquired at levels of 976, which is not too far away from the current market price, Aditya. What are the prospects?
Tata Motors, after having a spectacular rally, has gone into a range. So it's consolidating in a broad range. On the downside, the lower range is 860, and on the upside, it's 1060. Until this range doesn't break, it will keep consolidating in this range. So if the view is for the longer term, then you can hold. Otherwise, if the view is short term, then I don't see much action happening over here. So it's better to exit the counter.
All right. The next counter is GHCL Textiles. The question is from Atish here. This is from a longer term perspective. Lancelot, do you track this counter? It's an 800 crore market cap company.
Unfortunately, I don't track this counter, so I don't have much information on this company.
All right. Aditya, if you can give some key levels on this counter from a longer term perspective, they bought at a price of 70 rupees, currently trading at 87.
Could you repeat the name?
GHCL Textiles.
GHCL.
Yes, textiles.
Right. This counter has been recently listed in 2023 June. So after the listing, the stock is just consolidating again in a broad range. uh, there's not much action happening in this counter, but for the long term, I think there's good accumulation happening. If there's a breakout above level of 97, I think a fresh leg of rally could start towards levels of 120 to 130. So if you're a long-term investor, then hold for a breakout. Otherwise, if your view is ultra short-term, then you can get out of this counter.
All right. Incidentally, somebody's asking about when you get bonus in a particular counter. If you bought before the record date, that is when you essentially get the bonus. It does not matter when the company announces the bonus. You have to watch for the record date. Srinivas has got the next question. He's asking about Suzlon, which he's wondering whether he can buy at the current levels. And ordinarily, I would go to you, Aditya, on the charts, but I'm curious about what Lancelot has to say in the context of major announcements by the government in the last week. What are the prospects? And would you buy at this point, considering that Suzlon has gained so much over the last 1 year?
Alex, apart from Suzlon gaining over the last 1 year, if you look at the financials of Suzlon, they haven't gained as much as the share price has over the last 1 year. So this, when you look at it from a financial perspective or from a fundamental perspective, the valuations are really, really very high because they are factoring in huge upside or huge earnings from future contracts. And those are really, you can't factor that kind of earnings unless you actually see some order inflows and translating into revenues. So in my view, I think the valuations are stretched. So one would have to really wait it out till you see actually some huge order inflows leading to much higher profits, or just stay out till valuations become reasonable again.
All right. The next counter is Asahi India Glass. The question is from Naman Deora. They bought at a price of 704 rupees, 5% up today, trading close to 714. Aditya, what are the key levels you should watch out for? And would you suggest holding on to this counter? Minimum 1 month perspective. Sorry, just the horizon. It's just 1 month.
Yeah, so the stock gave breakout today itself. It crossed its swing high of about 695. So one can establish stop loss at 690 and hold for the rally to play out. As technically, once the swing high is taken out, there's scope for much more upside. So hold on until 690 is not broken, and that should be the stop loss for higher levels.
Dr. Ananya has got the next question. She's got a surplus of 150,000, or actually 1.5 lakh, and she's looking at allocating it into equities for the long-term perspective, which she defines as the next 1 to 2 years. What would you buy, Lancelot, based on the fundamentals for that time frame?
So I think, a company like, say, Larsen & Toubro is well poised to take advantage of both defense as well as the thrust of the government on the infrastructure space. And, given that valuations also are reasonable, there has been a very good order book growth in the last quarter. Almost 45,000 crores fresh orders are added. And the order growth momentum is seen to be sustaining over in the near term as well. One can look at adding something like a Larsen & Toubro in your portfolio at this point in time.
All right. The next counter is Sterlite Technologies. The question is from Mala, who's writing in from Coimbatore. They bought the counter at a price of 169 rupees. It's today, if you can pull up the counter and see, okay, it's about 2% higher in trade. Aditya, what should you suggest doing with this counter? Hold or sell at these levels?
I think of all the counters which we have discussed, I think Sterlite Tech qualifies for one of the best counters technically. I think one can even add this counter at current market price of 144 and maintain stop loss at 130. And target for this is 156 to 169. So the counter looks pretty good because it is coming out of a good consolidation and there's scope for a good breakout rally over here. So I think a very good rally could play out in this counter. So definitely hold this counter.
I said that I wouldn't take this. Ratika's got a question on L&T Finance. We have the time to take it. Should it be bought at the current level? On the fundamentals, Lancelot, it's currently... so I'm not very sure about that. How could it be? Okay, maybe I'm reading the counter wrong, but would you buy at this point?
No, at this point in time, I would probably wait and see, how the NPAs and other things pan out, because we are going to be in an area where, the credit is going to be a little bit more difficult. So one would actually wait for a while and see if there's a correction, then look at adding into this counter.
Yeah, my confusion was because we pulled up the wrong ticker. But in any case, Lancelot as well as Aditya, thanks so much for joining in and for answering all the questions that you did. Always a pleasure having you on the program. That brings us to the end of this particular edition of Ask Profit. It's been an absolute pleasure bringing it to you. If you had specific questions that we couldn't answer, do save them for tomorrow. And hopefully the answers that you got today are beneficial to you in any case. From Smriti and myself and the team that put this show together, thank you so much for watching. This is NDTV Profit.